There are moments when the universe stops pretending to care about your plans. When metal screams and gravity becomes a suggestion, and every careful calculation dissolves into smoke and prayer. This was one of those moments. The survey shuttle bucked hard, throwing Tessa against her restraints. Warning klaxons drowned thought. The viewport showed Rimdale's surface rushing up too fast, all jagged rock and frozen methane lakes reflecting double moons. She grabbed the manual controls. Pointless, probably, but her hands needed something to do besides shake. Beside her, Shira's breathing came in rapid, shallow gasps. The Lyson's pale lavender skin had gone nearly white, her oversized eyes locked on the approaching surface. Her delicate fingers gripped the armrests hard enough to leave impressions. Prey species reflexes, Tessa's mind catalogued distantly. Freeze response. She's terrified. The shuttle hit atmosphere at the wrong angle. Heat bloom across the forward sensors. Another alarm joined the chorus. Tessa killed half the power, redistributed thrust, angled for a crater that might maybe cushion the impact. I'm going to be sick, Shira whispered. Don't. We'll need those supplies. The crater rim filled the viewport. Tessa fired emergency retros. The shuttle's nose came up 6 degrees, maybe 7. Not enough. Never enough. She pulled Shira's release and wrapped one arm around the alien's narrow shoulders, the other braced against the console. Hold on to me. Shira's hands found Tessa's flight suit. Thin fingers twisted into the fabric. The impact drove thought away. Metal tore. Something exploded behind them. The world spun and Tessa counted rotations through gritted teeth. 1, 2, 3, and then stillness except for the hiss of venting pressure and the tick of cooling metal. We're alive, Shira breathed against Tessa's shoulder. Yeah. Tessa unwound her arm slowly, checking for breaks, just bruises, some cuts. She tasted copper, bit my tongue, fantastic. She released her harness and stood carefully. The shuttle canted 30 degrees to port. You hurt? I don't think so. They'd crashed in the crater's shadow. Tessa pulled emergency supplies from the still intact storage lockers while Shira activated the distress beacon. The signal pulsed weakly, damaged antenna, maybe, or interference from Rimdale's magnetic field. 4 days minimum before rescue, possibly 6. Shira moved to the forward viewport and froze. Her ears flattened against her skull, the fine fur at her nape standing rigid. Tessa, her voice came out barely audible. Tessa, there's something outside. Tessa came forward, ration pack in hand. The creature stood 50 meters away, watching them. 6 meters from nose to tail. Sleek body built for speed, all coiled muscle under mottled gray hide. 4 legs ending in claws that could open a shuttle's hull. Head wide enough to swallow Shira whole. Its eyes reflected the emergency lights, twin points of cold curiosity. That's a Rimdale stalker, Shira said. Apex predator. They hunt in packs. We studied them during survey planning. The survey data said they were territorial but avoided technology. This one looked very interested in their crashed shuttle. Just one so far. Tessa watched the creature shift its weight, testing distance, assessing threat. Smart. Most predators out here are smart. She grabbed a torn-off panel section. When I open the airlock, throw this as far as you can in the opposite direction. You want to distract it. I want to give it something to investigate while we secure the perimeter. The alien's pupils dilated until her eyes looked black. You can't be serious. That thing will tear us apart, not if we're careful. Tessa moved to the airlock controls. On 3, 1, 2, the panel sailed through the thin air and clattered against rocks 20 meters to starboard. The stalker's head snapped toward the sound. Tessa and Shira scrambled down the damaged boarding ramp, dragging supply containers. They made it to the crater wall before the stalker finished investigating the panel and turned back toward them. Tessa set up the thermal shelter between 2 massive boulders. Smart composite material that would hold heat and block wind. She worked fast, driving anchor spikes into frozen ground while Shira unpacked rations and water recyclers. The stalker paced the crater floor, never approaching, never leaving. Watching. Why isn't it attacking? Shira's voice shook. Curious, probably. We're not behaving like prey. We are prey. I'm prey. Your Shira's gaze swept over Tessa's frame, the broader shoulders, the binocular vision, the way she moved with predator efficiency. Your Deathworld stock. This is normal for you. Nothing about this is normal. Tessa secured the last anchor. But yeah, Earth has things that want to eat us. You learn to work around them. They retreated into the shelter as darkness fell complete. Shira activated a chemical light stick, soft green glow that wouldn't attract attention. Outside, something large moved across the rocks. Not the stalker they'd seen, something bigger, heavier footfalls. There are more, Shira whispered. Her whole body trembled. This moon is a death trap. The survey data said isolated predators, small packs, not this. Survey data's 6 years old. Populations shift. We're going to die here, not planning on it. Tessa split a ration pack and handed Shira half. Eat, you need calories. They sat in the shelter's cramped space, shoulders touching because there wasn't room to avoid it. Shira's trembling gradually eased. She smelled like the botanical lab where they'd first met, green growing things and mineral-rich soil. Tessa found herself acutely aware of the alien's warmth against her arm, the soft sound of her breathing, the way her ears twitched at every distant sound. How long were you on Earth? Shira asked quietly. Born there, left at 23 for the Survey Corps. Do you miss it? Sometimes. Tessa stared at the shelter's wall, missed the weight. Everything else feels too light, like I might float away. Shira was quiet for a moment. That must be lonely. Yeah, it is. The stalker appeared at the shelter opening just after midnight. Shira's gasp of terror cut off when Tessa put a hand over her mouth, gentle pressure, but firm. The human held perfectly still, eyes locked on the creature. It sniffed the entrance, head tilting with animal intelligence. This close, Tessa could see old scars along its flanks, one ear torn and healed crooked. Fighter, survivor. Then it huffed loud, resonant, and backed away. It's marking us, Shira whispered when Tessa released her. Claiming territory, maybe, or checking if we're worth the effort. Tessa's hand lingered near Shira's face a moment too long before she pulled it back. The licensed skin had felt impossibly soft under her palm, warm despite the cold. She forced herself to look away. Day 2, the stalker returned at dawn. It sat 30 meters away, watching them break down the shelter. When Tessa dragged supplies back to the crashed shuttle, the stalker followed at a distance. When she stopped, it stopped. When she turned, it sat. This is insane, Shira said. Why is it following us? Tessa studied the creature more carefully now. Its flanks looked lean. Hungry, but not desperate. Old scars along its shoulders, one ear notched. And something else, the way it kept glancing behind itself, the tension in its posture. Nervous, alone. I don't think it's hunting us, Tessa said slowly. I think it's lonely, lonely. Shira's voice climbed an octave. It's an apex predator. Doesn't mean it doesn't get lonely. Look at how it moves, keeps checking its flanks, watches the crater rim. That's not predator behavior. That's prey behavior. That doesn't make sense, unless it lost its pack. Tessa grabbed a ration pack, pulled out the protein bar. Shira's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Don't, the license said. Please don't. Tessa met her gaze. Those enormous eyes held terror, yes, but something else underneath. Concern for her. The realization made Tessa's chest tight. I'll be careful, she said quietly. That's not the same as safe. No, it's not. She pulled free gently and tossed the protein bar halfway between them and the stalker. The creature approached slowly, head low, cautious. It sniffed the bar for a long moment before picking it up with surprising delicacy. Then it retreated to its watching spot, ate in 2 bites, and settled onto its haunches. Shira had retreated to the shuttle entrance, every line of her body screaming flight response. But she hadn't run. Tessa found that more impressive than any academic degree or survey qualification. That evening, as they worked to repair the beacon's damaged antenna, another stalker appeared on the crater rim. Larger, scarred, dominant. The first stalker, Tessa had started calling it Buddy in her head, tensed immediately. Get behind me, Tessa said. What? Behind me? Now, Shira pressed against Tessa's back as the larger stalker descended into the crater. Buddy positioned itself between them and the intruder. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the larger stalker charged. The fight was brutal and fast. Teeth and claws and guttural sounds that made Shira whimper against Tessa's back. Buddy fought with desperate ferocity, protecting its space, protecting them. And when the larger stalker finally retreated, bleeding from a dozen wounds, Buddy stood panting in the crater center. Then it collapsed. No, the word came out before Tessa could stop it. She started forward. Tessa, don't. It saved us. It's still dangerous, I know. She approached slowly, hands visible, making soft, clicking sounds in her throat, meaningless to the stalker probably, but soothing in rhythm. Buddy's eyes tracked her, dim with pain. A deep gash ran along its foreleg, bleeding steadily into the frozen ground. I'm going to help you, Tessa said quietly. Don't eat me, okay? She used the medical kit from the shuttle. Antibacterial spray that probably wouldn't work on alien biology, but better than nothing. Synthetic skin patch over the worst of the wound. Buddy flinched but didn't pull away, didn't snap. It watched her with those reflecting eyes, and Tessa saw intelligence there. Awareness, understanding. When she finished, Buddy stood carefully and moved to the shelter entrance. It settled across the opening, massive body blocking the wind. It's guarding us, Shira whispered. She'd watched the entire thing from the shuttle ramp, hands clutched together. Why would it guard us? Because we're pack now, Tessa said, and pack protects pack. Day 3, they fell into rhythm. Tessa worked on repairs while Shira cataloged the moon's plant life, her actual job, the reason they'd been surveying this sector. Buddy followed them during the day, keeping distance but staying close. At night, it guarded the shelter. Shira's fear ebbed slowly, replaced by cautious fascination. She started documenting Buddy's behavior, making notes on her tablet between plant samples. Social structure definitely pack-based, she muttered. Displays protective aggression toward external threats, but submissive body language toward Tessa specifically. Not submissive. Tessa adjusted a circuit board. Respectful. What's the difference? Submission is fear. Respect is choice. Shira looked up from her tablet. That's surprisingly philosophical for someone who makes friends with apex predators. I contain multitudes. The joke landed, surprisingly. Shira's lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. Her ears perked forward, and Tessa found herself staring at the delicate fur inside them, the way they caught the light. Stop it, she told herself. Focus on the beacon, not on how her skin looks in the sun, not on that almost smile. That night, packed together in the shelter with Buddy blocking the entrance, Shira spoke into the darkness. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Why did you join the Survey Corps? Tessa was quiet for a moment, listening to Buddy's breathing outside, steady and deep. Wanted to see what else was out there. Earth felt small, full of people who knew exactly who they were supposed to be. I didn't fit the molds they had. And out here the molds are different. Still don't fit them, but at least there are more options to not fit into. Shira's laugh was soft, barely audible. I understand that. My people are scholars, researchers. Calm, measured, prey-species safe. I was supposed to study plants from sealed stations, never actually land on survey worlds. My family thought I was insane when I volunteered for field work. Were they right? Probably. Shira shifted closer, unconscious maybe, seeking warmth. But I was tired of being safe. Tessa became acutely aware of everywhere they touched. Shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, the warmth of Shira's body against her side. She smelled different than humans, sweeter, like flower petals and something mineral underneath. Her breathing had slowed, deepened. Tessa, Shira said quietly, if we die out here, we're not going to die. But if we do, I want you to know that these last 3 days, despite everything, despite the terror and the cold and that thing outside that should have killed us, I haven't felt small. You make me feel capable of impossible things. The words hung in the freezing air between them. Tessa's heart hammered against her ribs, too fast, too hard. She turned her head slightly and found Shira already looking at her. Those enormous eyes held something new now, something warm that made Tessa's breath catch. Shira, the Lycan, leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and pressed her lips to Tessa's. Soft, tentative, tasting like ration packs and courage. Tessa froze for half a second before her hand came up to cup Shira's face, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, became something hungry and desperate, months of mutual attraction, and 3 days of survival, breaking through every professional boundary they'd maintained. Shira made a sound, half gasp, half purr, and Tessa felt it vibrate through her bones. Her fingers found the soft fur behind Shira's ears, and the Lycan melted against her, trembling for entirely different reasons now. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Shira's pupils had dilated until her eyes looked black. That was, she started. Yeah, Tessa finished. They kissed again, slower this time, learning each other. Shira's hands fisted in Tessa's flight suit. Tessa traced the line of the licensed jaw, the elegant curve of her throat, memorizing every detail. Outside, Buddy huffed, approval or commentary, impossible to say. They fell asleep tangled together, sharing warmth and something more precious. Hope. Day 4, the beacon came back online at noon. Shira whooped and threw her arms around Tessa's neck. They kissed in the shadow of the crashed shuttle, unhurried now, taking their time. 3 days for pickup, Shira said against Tessa's lips. Maybe 4. Good, good. Means I get to keep kissing you. You're incorrigible, you like it. Shira pulled back just enough to meet Tessa's eyes. I do, more than I should. We're going to have to report this. Fraternization protocols. Let them court-martial me. Worth it. Shira's expression sobered. What happens when we get back to Buddy? Tessa looked over at the stalker. It lay in the sun, eyes closed, looking almost peaceful. Quarantine probably. Study. They'll want to know why it bonded. And us? Tessa cupped Shira's face. Us they'll definitely want to study. Is that a problem? Only if you think it is. Shira leaned into the touch, her eyes closing. I spent my whole life being safe. I think I'm done with that. Good. Because I'm not safe at all. I know. Shira's eyes opened, bright and clear. That's why I love you. The words struck Tessa silent. Love. She'd never been good at love, at the softer emotions that required vulnerability and trust. But standing here in the frozen crater with an alien who'd seen her at her most dangerous and hadn't run, with a creature that shouldn't trust anything but had chosen them anyway, maybe love wasn't about being good at it. Maybe it was about choosing it anyway. I love you too, she said. The words felt foreign in her mouth, but right. Day 5, the storm hit just after dawn. Rimdal's weather patterns were unpredictable, driven by the gravitational dance of its 3 moons. This one came fast and brutal, howling wind that shredded the thermal shelter in minutes, temperatures plummeting to lethal levels. Tessa and Shira retreated to the shuttle. Buddy followed, squeezing through the damaged airlock with difficulty. Inside, they huddled in the cargo bay. The hull groaned under the wind's assault. Metal creaked and buckled. It's not going to hold, Shira said. She was shaking again, but trying to hide it. The structural damage from the crash, I know. Tessa checked the emergency beacon. Still transmitting. Rescue will come. When? Soon. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. The hull breach started small, a crack in a stress weld, barely visible. Then the wind found it. Metal tore with a shriek. Freezing air rushed in. Shira cried out as the temperature dropped. Tessa grabbed her, pulled her clothes, wrapped her flight jacket around both of them. Buddy moved to the breach. The stalker pressed its body against the gap, blocking the wind with its bulk. It shuddered under the assault but held position. No, Tessa said. Buddy, get back here. The creature didn't move. It's going to die, Shira whispered against Tessa's shoulder. It's going to freeze, protecting us. Tessa made a decision. She grabbed thermal blankets from the emergency supplies and approached Buddy. The stalker's eyes tracked her, but it didn't move from the breach. Tessa draped the blankets over its back, tucking them around its body, creating a barrier between it and the lethal cold. Hold on, she said quietly. Just hold on. She returned to Shira and they waited. Minutes stretched into hours. The wind screamed. Buddy trembled under the thermal blankets but held position, its massive body the only thing between them and death. When the storm finally broke, Buddy collapsed. Tessa and Shira rushed forward, checking for breathing, for heartbeat. The stalker's chest rose and fell, shallow but steady, hypothermic but alive. Tessa used the last heat packs from the med kit, tucked them against Buddy's body, wrapped it in every blanket they had. Shira sat against the creature's side, sharing body heat, murmuring soft words in Lysan that probably meant nothing to the stalker but everything in intention. Your pack, Shira whispered. You understand that, you're our pack. Buddy's eyes opened slightly. A low rumble, that purr that meant contentment, trust. It had risked everything for them, and somehow, impossibly, survived. Day 6, the rescue shuttle arrived at midday, dropping through atmosphere with emergency thrusters screaming. Tessa, Shira, and Buddy stood beside their crashed vessel. The stalker pressed against Tessa's side, her hand resting on its head. The rescue team's leader, a Centaurian named Vel, cycled through the airlock and froze when he saw Buddy. Get to the shuttle, he said. Now, we'll suppress it while you board. No. Tessa stepped between Vel and Buddy, "You're not shooting it. That's a hostile life form. That's the creature that kept us alive for 6 days. It drove off other predators. It gave us shelter. It nearly died protecting us during the storm. You're not shooting it." Vel's mandibles clicked irritation. "We need to secure the area. The area's secure." Tessa held her ground, her jaw set. Behind her, Buddy made a low rumbling sound. Not threat, but inquiry. "Stand down or I file an official protest, and you can explain to the review board why you killed a sapient creature that demonstrated clear pack bonding behavior with human personnel." Pack bonding with a Rimdell stalker? Vel's translation device made his disbelief clear. "That's impossible." Shira stepped forward. Her hands trembled, but her voice came clear. "I documented the entire sequence. Repeated protective behavior, resource sharing, emotional recognition. Under Concordance Protocol 7, any creature displaying complex social bonding with survey personnel must be evaluated for sapience markers before hostile action." Vel looked between them. "This is highly irregular. Everything about this situation is highly irregular." Tessa crossed her arms. "Make the call. We wait here or we all leave together." The pause stretched. Then Vel gestured to his team. "Prepare a containment bay. If that thing shows any aggression, it won't." "How can you be certain?" Tessa turned to Buddy. The stalker watched her with those reflecting eyes. She held out her hands slowly, palm up. Buddy stood, moved forward with careful deliberation, and pressed its massive head against her palm. The creature's hide felt rough, warm. It rumbled again, that purr that Tessa felt through her bones. "Because it trusts me," she said quietly. "And I trust it." Buddy followed her up the boarding ramp. It settled in the containment bay without resistance, gaze never leaving Tessa. She sealed the bay and joined Shira in passenger seating. Vel's team strapped in for departure, casting nervous glances at the creature behind the transparent barrier. "Your government will want to study it," Shira said, her hand finding Tessa's. "Study why it bonded with you, with us. Let them try." Tessa interlaced their fingers. "They can put us in whatever lab they want, run whatever tests. As long as we stay together, all three of us, they lifted off. Through the viewport, Rimdell shrank to a gray smudge against black. The moon where they'd crashed, survived, found each other. Where an apex predator had chosen connection over instinct, had learned what it meant to be pack. Vel approached, his mandibles clicking uncertainty. "The review board will have questions. About the bonding mechanism, the behavioral modifications, the long-term implications." "Good." Tessa kept her eyes on the viewport, on Rimdell disappearing behind them. "We have questions too. Like whether the Concordance recognizes pack bonds between humans and non-sapient species as legally binding relationships." "You want legal recognition. I want them to understand that Buddy isn't cargo. It's family." Vel was silent for a long moment. "I'll include that in my report. You do that." After he left, Shira leaned her head against Tessa's shoulder. "That was incredibly reckless." "Yeah, and probably career-ending. Probably. And you did it anyway." Tessa kissed the top of Shira's head, breathing in her scent, flower petals and mineral earth and home. "Of course I did. That's what pack means." Through the containment bay's transparent wall, Buddy watched them with those intelligent eyes. Its tail swept in slow, measured arcs. Content. Safe. The rescue shuttle climbed toward orbit and home, carrying with it a human who'd learned to love, an alien who'd learned to be brave, and a stalker that had learned what it meant to be pack. 3 souls bound together by survival and choice, and the impossible truth that sometimes the universe offers connection in the places you least expect it. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to reach out, that connection reaches back.